Thank you very much. You may all have your seats. Honorable Chief Justice of the Eastern Caribbean Supreme Court, Honorable James Janice Pereira, Honorable Justice of Appeal, Justice Davidson Baptiste, Honorable Justice of Appeal, Justice Paul Webster, Honorable Justice of Appeal, Justice Maria Michel, Resident High Court Judge in the Criminal Division of the Eastern Caribbean Supreme Court, Mrs. Victoria Charles Clark, Solicitor General of the Commonwealth of Dominica, Mrs. Dominica Hyacinth Burton, Director of Public Prosecutions, Ms. Evelina Baptiste, members of the Dominica Bar Association, Deputy Registrar of the Supreme Court, Ms. Uriah Sebastian, jurist officials based in Trinidad who are here with us this morning, Regional Coordinator of the project, Mr. John Fuller, Project Director of the project, the JURIST project, Mrs. Gloria Richards Johnson, Communications Specialist of the project, the JURIST project, Ms. Alison Alley, members of the press, invited guests, ladies and gentlemen, good morning to all. Honorable Chief Justice, with your leave, I would like to share something I learned in England many years ago. And I learned this one at a ceremony when someone was asked to chair proceedings in a particular matter because the chairperson did not come forward to chair the proceedings for some reason. So this gentleman went up front to the microphones, looked at the audience, and he said, "God is dead. Karl Marx is dead, and I'm not feeling too well myself." Well, I'd like to change this around. We all know that Karl Marx is dead. God is very much alive. And I want to say I'm happy to be here this morning to share the proceedings here, as well as to be at this very auspicious occasion for the handing over of equipments donated to us by the JURIST project personnel in Trinidad. I consider this to be a Thanksgiving exercise. And as such, I would like to begin, first of all, by thanking God for being here. I get a little goose pimples because I remember what here was like after Hurricane Maria. When we stepped in here the day after Hurricane Maria struck on the 17th of September, 2017, and saw the mess that was in here. And we thought we would never get to this position we're in at the moment. So I want to thank God for being here. I secondly want to thank my staff for the very hard work they put in to cleaning up the mess which was there after Hurricane Maria. Even before the experts came in to clean up and to do repair works, my staff went down in the dungeons and they did a lot of work to clean there up, clean the mess, get the documents that were in the mud out. So I really want to sincerely thank my staff for the hard work which they put into initially to get the ball rolling with respect to the repair works that eventually ensued. And I want to thank the government of the Commonwealth of Dominica for their financial input to realize what we've got here, the repairs to the roof, the repairs to the ceiling, the flooring, the lighting. A lot has gone in there. A lot of persons have worked very hard to bring it to the standard we are in at the moment. And here come jurists to assist us with the equipment and the hard work by the Honorable Chief Justice to ensure that that was realized. So, without any further ado, this ceremony is expected to be a brief one. We have Court of Appeals sitting in this jurisdiction, and cases are supposed to be heard again later this morning. I would like to suggest to the persons, with your leave, Honorable Madam Chief Justice, I would like to suggest to the persons who are going to be giving a few remarks at this ceremony that please accept the protocol list as have already been given. So there's no need to burden yourselves by going over the list of names which I have just mentioned. And having said that, it brings me to the point where I have to introduce the first person on the list, on the agenda this morning, to give a few remarks. It is someone whom I have a lot of respect, regard, and admiration for, the Honorable Chief Justice. She has created history by being the first female Chief Justice in the OECS. I think for that we need to put our hands together for the Honorable Chief Justice. Chief Justice since 2012. She's here today, and I've seen a lot of reforms. I'm with the court for about 13 years now. And during that period, I would say it's fair that this Chief Justice has created tremendous reforms in the court, in every aspect. We're now on the verge of launching e-litigation, and the Honorable Chief Justice was here in Dominica, educating us on the subject in December last year. Soon, this court will be almost paperless. Filing documents into court and considering cases by the court will be done electronically. And that's the direction in which the Honorable Chief Justice would like us to move into. So I really want to thank the Honorable Chief Justice for the tremendous hard work she has put in to bring the courts in the OECS to the standard it's in at the moment. Without any further ado, I would like you to join me and put our hands together to welcome the Honorable Chief Justice to the podium to deliver a few remarks. Honorable Chief Justice.
Good morning, everyone. I adopt the protocol set out by the Chairman and Master of Ceremonies and the Registrar of the Court of Dominica. But permit me to recognize, of course, our Honorable Justices of Appeal, Justice of Appeal Batiste, Justice of Appeal Michel, Justice of Appeal Webster, the High Court Judge for the Commonwealth, Justice Charles Clark, and also to recognize the Director of the JURIST project, Mrs. Richards Johnson, also the Coordinator of the JURIST project, Mr. John Furlong, and Miss Ali. I think I saw her here a little earlier this morning, but it's probably around. And I would like to welcome every one of you. I was hoping that we would have seen a larger number of the bar here in Dominica this morning, but I'm also glad to see the Director of Public Prosecutions and of course those persons representing the magistracy. Today is really for Dominica in terms of the court. It is a historic time. I think when you look around this courtroom, perhaps one of the questions that one would ask themselves is whether or not in Dominica you have seen a courtroom equipped with the type of equipment and technology that you see displayed here today. And so I take distinct pleasure in making these remarks this morning because this ceremony is really to mark the official handover of the state-of-the-art courtroom equipment, which was funded by the JURIST project by way of another form of assistance to the Eastern Caribbean Supreme Court, and more specifically to the people of the Commonwealth of Dominica. And so I wish to express my sincere gratitude to the JURIST project for the funding provided that made this refurbishment possible. I think all of you here, the people of Dominica, lawyers, will not easily forget the ravages caused by Hurricane Maria. It was a time of despair. I recall that the Court of Appeal was here. It was the moment when we were celebrating the OECS Bar Law Conference, as well as being here to celebrate the official opening of the court's law year and the sitting of the Court of Appeal. We had so many plans in place for exhibitions, award ceremonies. All of those matters had to be canceled. In fact, the court was unable to open during the course of that year by an official address anywhere. As you know, the courts in Dominica ended up with closed doors. Closed doors. And it's really difficult to think what closed doors of the court do to access to justice, to the people, to the bar, to the profession. The fact that your rights cannot be vindicated because you are unable to file a document, you are unable to have a hearing of a matter, and basically you are unable to have justice done, plain and simple. This went on for several months. But one of the things I think that I have always been struck by is the remarkable spirit, that indomitable spirit of the people across the Caribbean, and indeed in the state of the Commonwealth of Dominica, that spirit of resilience of our brothers and sisters, not to be broken by the ravages of hurricanes as fierce as Maria. So we can fast forward to a year and a half to now, and you can see that a sense of normalcy has been returning to this nature isle. It is true that there is certainly a lot more work to be done in the recovery process. Significant strides have been made through the hard work of the government and the people, and the financial and other assistance provided by the regional and institutional partners, and in particular the Government of Canada, which has continued to demonstrate its commitment to the developing countries of the Caribbean. At the court's headquarters, we were determined to leave no stone unturned in making the courts operational once more. One of our aims was to have the courts not only reopened, but to seize the opportunity to see the court facilities repaired, refurbished in a way that would ensure greater resiliency and enhance efficiency by the installation of modern court equipment with the ability to utilize ICT. I have on earlier occasion said that there are valuable lessons to be learned, as well as opportunities to be gained from every disaster. It has been said that when we cannot control what's happening, we must challenge ourselves to control the way we respond to what's happening. And that is truly where true power lies. We cannot control nature and the unleashing of her wrath from time to time. What we can do, however, is to control how we recover from it by having and implementing a recovery plan. And so when Maria exposed the court's vulnerabilities in its ability to recover from such a disaster, it was felt that this provided a good opportunity for not simply replacing damaged equipment and restoring the courtroom to the state it was before Hurricane Maria, but also to modernize the courtroom to meet the demands of this era of technology, so as to provide better service at less cost to users. This is all in keeping with the court's mission to harness the use of technology for making the courts more efficient, and in so doing, improving the quality of justice. Given the severe damage caused by the hurricane and the disruption to court operations which resulted, we turned to the JURIST project for assistance. In June 2018, we wrote to the JURIST project director detailing priority requirements for the courts in Dominica. Now, the JURIST project, as you may know, is a 5-year regional Caribbean judicial reform initiative funded by the Government of Canada, as well as through contributions by the CARICOM governments and courts. The project is being implemented by the Caribbean Court of Justice, which is the regional executing agency, on behalf of Global Affairs Canada and the Conference of the Heads of Judiciary of CARICOM. At its core, the aim of the project is to lend support to judiciaries within CARICOM in their efforts to strengthen their courts to deal with cases fairly and more efficiently. You would see here in the background, I think unless I'm blocking it, all of the various areas which are the core aims of the JURIST project. Over the years, JURIST has partnered closely with the Eastern Caribbean Supreme Court on a number of initiatives. The first was the Civil Backlog Reduction Project in the state of Grenada. Just last month, the Sexual Offences Model Court was opened in the state of Antigua and Barbuda with funding and technical support from JURIST. As with the Sexual Offences Model Court in Antigua and Barbuda, JURIST was instrumental in providing all of this new equipment that you see in this courtroom today. JURIST committed, after writing, with a promise to provide equipment valued at over $50,000 US. We did further assessments, further consultations with the Dominica High Court Office. Equipment specifications were finalized in August of 2018 by the IT department of the headquarters, along with Mr. Furlong of the JURIST project. And in October of last year, procurement of the equipment began and installation of that equipment followed shortly thereafter, with support and supervision from the IT department at headquarters and the court administrator. It behoves me to recognize the hours of hard work of all the persons who were involved in the equipment installation process. And I am told that I am to specially recognize Mr. Cedric Labad. Is he here today? The electrician from the Government Electrical Department, who meticulously installed all cables and lines in this courtroom for a seamless finish. Now, as you look around, you will realize that there are cameras along the walls, screens, there is a document camera, and I think some of us will have to get used to seeing ourselves in real time. It becomes uncomfortable at the beginning, but I think eventually we get used to it. And I think it's just yesterday that we were remarking about it, as we sometimes have a tendency, perhaps, whether we frown or we furrow our brows and so on in thought. And we will all have to get used to that in terms of recording. So what do we have? We have the Liberty Digital Audio Recording System, and that system will allow for multi-channel recording of courtroom proceedings, real-time transcribing by uploading recordings directly to transcribers outside of the courtroom. That will enable time and cost savings of this system, because what we have now, and we know in many of our states, the issue and the problem of transcripts and the delay that we have in the production of transcripts for litigants seeking to prosecute and move their matter forward. And so hopefully that will end many frustrations of litigants in relation to matters before the court. We have the screens, which is, they are called smart displays. And this is very important because more and more the court is utilizing web and video conferencing to hear matters, to conduct case management. So these smart display screens will be an asset to facilitate this process. I will tell you that as soon as it was up and running, which was about a week ago, they worked into the night, and the headquarters was the first to use it by the Monday morning, and it worked all day seamlessly as we conducted those case management conferences for all of those matters. It was a long list of over 70 matters being conducted by this method. Now, think about it. Perhaps the court would have to come, or an officer would have to come and fly to Dominica in order to conduct that kind of sitting. We were able to stay from headquarters in St. Lucia with lawyers coming to conduct their matters in the court and deal with those matters seamlessly. That is precisely where we need to go. Then we have what is called the pan-title zoom camera, or the document camera as it is called. And that is integral to the web conferencing and the output. Then we have the podium over here, which is where you can upload your exhibits, you can upload copies of your authorities, and it can be then displayed on the screen. I think sometimes we know how we are fumbling at pages that are maybe not paginated or not numbered, but it can easily be put on the screen and everyone can see precisely what is being addressed and what is being referred. So that takes us even much further in our advancement. It is a cart which can be moved around, and so it ensures just easy movability. And so it is my hope that this refurbished criminal courtroom will greatly improve the conduct of criminal proceedings, and not only criminal proceedings, but when it is not used for criminal proceedings, for other proceedings, such as civil proceedings in the meantime. Because technology is inextricably linked with our everyday lives, and it is imperative that the courts keep pace with technology and make the best possible use of it. This equipped courtroom places Dominica ahead of quite a number of other courtrooms within our OECS. And it is my hope that it will be used to the fullest by members of the bar, public and private, and our judicial officers to achieve its fullest benefits. Some of the benefits of its use will be the ease with which evidence can be taken from witnesses, whether those witnesses may be overseas or unable to travel. It doesn't mean that a case will then have to be adjourned for a later date, developing delays and backlogs in the system. It also helps with dealing with vulnerable witnesses, children, elderly persons. As I said, conducting case management remotely, the hearing of applications and even substantive appeals through the headquarters and the link with the court in Dominica. Importantly, it also can provide a video link to prison facilities where there may be securities concerned associated with transporting a defendant or defendants. Now think about that. Think about the security issues, the cost, the time of bringing persons, whether they're on remand or persons who are in prison, to the court, that you are able to conduct, whether they're bail applications and other type or similar hearings, without having to transport a prisoner to the courtroom. Transportation, all of those arrangements, all of that will be minimized. So I encourage all of you to use it, embrace it, because in the end, you'll be doing and giving better service to the people of Dominica. So let's once again place on record our gratitude for the assistance afforded by the JURIST project team, for their unwavering support to the Eastern Caribbean Supreme Court in our efforts to improve and streamline our operations and to offer more efficient facilities to the people we serve. Without JURIST, I don't think that we would have gotten this far today. And at this juncture, I recognize, as I said, the presence of the JURIST project director, Ms. Richards-Johnson, her team, Mr. Furlong, and Mr. Ali, who have been supportive, cooperative, and persons to whom you can go to express what you see as your priorities and who listen to determine how those priorities can be fulfilled by the project which they are tasked to operate. And so I thank them for that support. I would also like to thank the government of the Commonwealth of Dominica and their commitment to providing proper court facilities in Dominica. I am heartened to know that work is underway for providing a better facility for the civil courts, and that movement is being made to build permanent halls of justice for this vital branch of the state. I say vital because it is vital. It is vital to our democracy. I want to also recognize the hard work of our resident judges in Dominica, the registrar of the court, Mr. Walsh, and all the court staff who worked under very, very trying conditions for many months whilst repairs were made to the court facilities. I know several of them became ill whilst they were seeking and trying hard to perform their functions. Your dedication to the court, your dedication to service has ensured that justice continues to be delivered to the people of Dominica. I end by adopting a mantra from a former head of government of blessed memory. I think Justice of Appeal Webster will probably remember this one. His mantra was, "Forward ever, backward never." The Honorable Lavity Stout of the British Virgin Islands. I urge you to let us continue to move forward together in building a stronger, more resilient judiciary. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chief. Can we do a little better than that by putting our hands together for such thank you so very much. You know, while I was sitting here, and I hope you don't mind me saying that, Chief, I was thinking how the discussions went between the Honorable Chief Justice and Mrs. Gloria Richards-Johnson to get the assistance for Dominica under the courts. And I concluded by saying, I think in the end, Mrs. Johnson must have said, it doesn't make sense fighting the Chief Justice. I better proceed and give the assistance to Dominica. I would not like to be in violation of any court proceedings, so let me just give the assistance. Thanks very much. once again to the Honorable Chief Justice for this splendid address. I think one of the things you outlined is the tremendous benefits which the courts in the region will be had from the assistance from the JURIST project, particularly cost savings. It has been very expensive over the years for the judges and the justices of appeal to be moving in the various islands. Cost of ticket, cost of hotel accommodation. It's tiring to the judges to move through all the 9 islands so often. And when I sat here last week and we did case management status hearing sessions, I was like, it would have costed the court quite a bit of money for the judge to come to Dominica, to sit, to hear all these 70 cases. And here it is, we are doing it seamlessly via the electronic medium. And it's just a tremendous achievement. And I really want to thank the Honorable Chief Justice and the JURIST project officials who are here for the assistance given. Next, to deliver a few remarks is this person who, had it not been for the assistance from the JURIST project, we would not have been here today to see ourselves on the screen and to utilize the equipment which we have here. I almost said equipments. I learned the word equipment last week. I was told it's not equipments, never say equipments. Yeah, and thanks to my deputy, I think, for correcting me here. So I would like to, without any further ado, call Mrs. Gloria Richards-Johnson to deliver a few remarks at this point in time. Can we show our appreciation and put our hands together? And welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And with your permission and the permission of your ladyship, I would like to dispense with the courtesies already established. Now, one of the things I'd like to indicate, and a very good morning to everyone, first of all. I worked in another life with the CARICOM Secretariat for a number of years, and I had the privilege of coming to Dominica many times in the past. I come from Guyana, which is a country that has a very big, lush rainforest. But I was very, very impressed by the beauty of this fantastic Emerald Isle. And there was something that was mentioned just now that caught my attention, that was mentioned by Her Ladyship, about the indomitable spirit of the people of Dominica. Those of us from the Caribbean who were in the United States, as Maria marched through this region with her raft, we were very upset and concerned for all of our brethren who lived on these islands. And when we heard the pleas from the Prime Minister of this country, it was really quite frightening. So when we were coming in here on Sunday, I requested a window seat just so I could see what had happened to Dominica. And I must tell you that I think the indomitable spirit of the people have gotten their clue from Mother Nature herself. Because she comes in with her rafts and then she replenishes us. Now, those of you who live here, and if you look really closely, you can see some trees that still don't have their tops, come back yet. But nonetheless, to the casual observer, Dominica is as beautiful and as green as ever. And I think it helps us as human beings to have that same spirit of being able to replenish ourselves. And for that, we're very, very grateful. So I must congratulate the people of Dominica. I spoke to a few people who told me of the challenges that they had. I spoke to some of the court employees yesterday who shared some of the challenges, not only in working hard to bring the court back, but simultaneously working at home to bring their own homes back. And some of them are still in the process of so doing. So congratulations to all of you. And we had your back. So So when we heard of this request, we were very, very pleased to have the privilege of honoring it. Now, my role here today is not really to speak on behalf of JURIST. I'm here today primarily to handing over of the equipment to the Dominican courts, and also to speak on behalf of the High Commissioner, Her Excellency Marie Legault, High Commissioner of Canada to Barbados and the Eastern Caribbean, who could not be here today because of some other pressing issues. The Government of Canada, however, send their greetings and best wishes for a successful event today. And even though she couldn't be here today, the High Commissioner has sent these remarks, which I will now share with you. The Government of Canada has been a long-time supporter for the justice sector initiatives in the Caribbean. We believe that with improved and more efficient court proceedings, the court system is able to better respond to the needs of its citizens. Additionally, it will be better equipped to support the differentiated needs of its citizens because, as we know, men, women, children, and other different groups are not homogeneous and require a court system that can respond appropriately. This is especially important to Canada. Canada is committed to work with Dominica and other Caribbean countries to remove the barriers that prevent traditionally marginalized groups from participating equally in society. The courts serve a central role in our constitutional democracy. Under the rule of law, people rely very heavily on the courts and on courthouses, all of which are subject to various natural, technological, or humanly caused disasters or catastrophes. Preparedness for such events is a vital government function, but it is particularly important for the courts because they must remain open to the extent possible to ensure that all people's legal rights are protected. Regardless of the nature of the hazard, disasters will continue to challenge court personnel for many years to come. Court staff must consider a range of complex issues, from physical design of courthouses to the physical safety of its employees and to the structure of data and communication systems and their ability to function in a disaster, to policies that balance public access with security needs. Planning and training needs will require greater specialization and urgency. While the probability of any event hurting any one courthouse at one particular time is small, it is important to consider such hazards which are known as low probability, high consequence events, the effects of which are so grave that planning for even unlikely events is necessary. Allow me to illustrate how disaster preparedness for the courts has become an important issue. Studies have shown that Hurricane Katrina, which wreaked havoc on several states in the United States in 2005, was one of the costliest and most destructive natural disasters in the history of the United States. According to the Federal Emergency Management Agency, FEMA, the total cost in terms of lives lost and damage to property is still unknown. However, early estimates indicated that the damage was going to cost the United States between $150 and $200 billion. Hurricane Katrina was therefore not only a disaster, it was a catastrophe. A catastrophe is a disaster that overwhelms the capacity of local and state governments to effectively lead response and recovery efforts. Louisiana's court system and the United States Court of Appeals for the Fifth Circuit were profoundly affected. New Orleans was home to 7,500 attorneys, 1/3 of the state's bar. The offices of the Louisiana State Bar Association and the New Orleans Bar Association were flooded. The building housing the Louisiana Supreme Court and the Louisiana Court of Appeal for the Fourth Circuit suffered minor flooding. The main problems for those courts were that the building's accessibility was inaccessibility because the city was evacuated and few people were allowed back in quickly. The lack of utilities, power in particular, and the impact of the storm on court personnel, all of whom were required to evacuate the city, and most of whom suffered their own severe property damage. City and district courts in 8 parishes in metropolitan New Orleans were damaged and unusable. Over 8,000 prisoners had to be relocated. The damage and disorganization that followed was so severe that many suspects were likely to be released because they had to wait too long without charges being filed against them. Evidence in approximately 3,000 criminal cases pending before the court system was lost, and many witnesses and victims had left the city. Many had not returned up to 1 year after the hurricane. As a result, many cases were delayed or dismissed for lack of witnesses. So how do courts go about preparing for and dealing with disasters? Firstly, according to the National Center for State Courts, the court's leaders set the tone for effective emergency management. The type of leadership structure in place at the time of crisis can influence the performance of an organization during a period when its regular mode of operation is disrupted. Secondly, courts must look at their priorities. A key feature of leadership is setting priorities. The courts must prioritize their emergency management needs based on the most likely and most injurious events that could influence the administration of justice. According to the National Strategy for Homeland Security in the United States, cost and efficiency considerations require that courts take reasonable, rigorous risk assessments before allocating scarce resources. Thirdly, a communication strategy needs to be developed, taking into consideration the technologies to be used for communicating with essential court staff, the procedures for communicating with court staff, data communications and security, and procedures for communicating with stakeholders ranging from those with daily business, for example, members of the bar, to those with more occasional interactions with courts, such as jurors, parties to legal actions, and users of other court services. Finally, continuity of operation is an important aspect of disaster management in all levels of government, including the judiciary. Continuity of business planning will vary depending on the nature of the court, guidance documents and other resources drawn upon for the planning and the nature of the hazards or other threats to operations present to the courthouse. Reconstruction after a disaster starts right away, but the decisions taken early on will have far-reaching impacts on the lives of those affected. In conclusion, it is therefore important to ensure that we build back better in a way that involves communities, policymakers, government, and reconstruction agencies. The Canadian government and the JURIST project are pleased to be of assistance to the people of Dominica. We hope that the equipment provided and the refurbishments of the courts will help in making the courts more efficient and effective. And from my personal perspective, once again, I'd like to extend my sincere congratulations to everyone in the court system, starting from Her Ladyship. You've done an amazing job. I was quite surprised yesterday when I walked into this beautiful, fresh, bright courtroom, and with all of this equipment in here. And I was very pleased to hear the words of the Honorable Chief Justice, who indicated the efficiency and the effectiveness with which this equipment is being utilized already. Thank you so very much, and it's been a privilege.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Richard Johnson. I think it's important for me to mention at this time the fact that before the vote of thanks, before I get to that, I think I should mention the fact that during the presentation of Mrs. Richard Johnson's remarks there a short while ago, she mentioned she focused on disaster in the US and in other parts and in the region. And a lot of it was spent looking at the recovery after the hurricanes, after the disaster. And with this in mind, I would like to mention that before the vote of thanks is given, that a recovery plan will be presented here, and it will be received by the Honorable Chief Justice, which will guide us into focusing on recovery, reconstruction after disaster that affect the courts in the future. Secondly, I would like to make the point that the Honorable Chief Justice said in her remarks that work has commenced on a civil court, another building. It is not far away from here. It is called the Barracoon building, where the civil court will be moved. And I'm sure we're going to be asking the JURIST project to assist us again. So I would like Mrs. Gloria Richards Johnson to bear this in mind. As soon as we have the Barracoon building set up, we'll be knocking on your doors again to ask for assistance to equip the court just a little lower down the road. Thirdly, I omitted to do it earlier on. I think I should do it now. Apologize for the absence of the Honorable Attorney General, who was scheduled to be here this morning, and the Honorable Minister for Justice. They were both expected to be here. They are both caught up in cabinet and unable to be here. And I would like to extend an apology here on their behalf for being absent. It is left for me right now to introduce the next speaker, Mr. John Fulong. Mr. John Fulong, I've known him for a little while, several months. He has been of great assistance to the region. I think the first time I met him was in Trinidad at a session we had, a training session we had. He is in close contact with the courts in the region and has been of great assistance to the court in the region in terms of organizing seminars, training sessions, and here he is this morning. And it's my distinct pleasure to welcome the Regional Project Coordinator for JURIST, Mr. John Fulong, to the podium to deliver a few remarks. Please put our hands together for Mr. Fulong.
Good morning all. With the leave of Her Excellency, I would like to acknowledge all protocols have been observed. As a first-time visitor to Dominica, I must say I didn't know what to expect when I was entering, and I must echo the sentiments of Mrs. Gloria Richards Johnson, my director, that the hospitality, the joy we see, it was a testament to the resilience of this country, and I am really very happy to be here giving these remarks. The JURIST project is pleased to be here in Dominica as we present the Court of Dominica with equipment to assist in automating the capturing of court proceedings. There is no doubt in my mind that this equipment will redound to the benefit of the courts and everyone they serve, as it will result in improved efficiency and effectiveness. The provision of this equipment to the courts will also assist the project in achieving one of its overarching objectives, which is to reduce delay and backlog. It is also a perfect example of what the JURIST project is all about: partnerships and collaboration. We recognize that without the support of you, our valuable stakeholders within the local jurisdictions where we work, none of our objectives will be achieved. We depend on you to ensure that all initiatives we undertake are sustained long after the project ends. The JURIST project has been working with judiciaries in the Caribbean to support their own efforts to improve court administration and the ability of the courts and the judiciary to resolve cases efficiently and fairly. Our aim is to modernize and strengthen court systems, their processes and services, and to equip judicial officers and court staff with the skills and competencies necessary to deliver justice in a fair, predictable, efficient, and timely manner. The ultimate goal of the JURIST project is to develop a regional judicial system that is more responsive to the needs of women, men, youth, and the poor. Funded under a $19 million arrangement with the Government of Canada, this multi-year project is being implemented by the Caribbean Court of Justice on behalf of the Conference of Heads of Judiciary and Chief Justices of CARICOM. The CCJ and other regional partners also contributing approximately $4 million Canadian dollars to the project. We currently have initiatives in Barbados, Belize, Guyana, Jamaica, the Eastern Caribbean, namely Antigua, where just last month we officially opened the Sexual Offences Model Court, and of course here in Dominica, where we are pleased to open a similarly equipped criminal court and, as you just heard, a civil court as well. Our approach is a collaborative one, whereby we organize regular meetings with chief justices and key stakeholders in the justice system in each participating country. We believe that such an inclusive approach allows participants to identify their respective priorities for judicial reform. And by consulting stakeholders, the JURIST project gives voice to their concerns and needs. The initiatives that are funded as a result of this process not only respond to the priorities that are identified, but also have the support and involvement of the stakeholders. The partnerships that the project have developed with the judiciaries, bar associations, police, directors of public prosecutions, and non-governmental organizations remain key to the success of each initiative supported by the JURIST project, and for the overall success of JURIST as a regional judicial reform project. These collaborative planning meetings encourage judicial leadership, local support and buy-in of initiatives, and will continue to be a mainstay of the JURIST project. Gender equality is one of the cross-cutting themes of the JURIST project. This means that every initiative we consider is viewed through a gender lens. We have made great strides thus far. To date, the project has completed several initiatives, which include the guidelines for sexual offense cases, disaster recovery, business continuity planning, training and court administration and adjudication that is gender responsive and customer focused, re-engineering of business processes in selected courts to identify backlogs, introduce technology to eliminate delays and expedite the process, and undertake training for a more efficient administration of justice. New civil procedure rules in Guyana, delay and backlog reduction in Grenada, regional training needs assessment, which produced a regional training plan for the remainder of the project, supporting courts to develop tools to deliver public education programs and measure customer feedback, establishing a knowledge management system to house all information assets of the project, as well as those of other justice reform initiatives in the region. Implementing delay and backlog elimination mechanisms, establishing a business model for regional information and communications technology solutions, with a specific focus on case management information systems. And finally, and importantly, establishing specialized courts, as was done in Antigua and Barbuda. Sustainability is imperative to a project like this, and an effort to continue with judicial reforms and institutional strengthening, we ensure that the results of completed initiatives are shared with other participating countries, that best practices are identified, and we encourage and support the implementation of similar initiatives in other judiciaries. I will invite you to visit our website and Facebook page to learn in more detail of initiatives being undertaken by the JURIST project and other justice reform activities in the region. We look forward to your continued support as we work to improve and enhance the judicial system in the Caribbean region. And in closing, I just want to say to the Registrar, Ozzy, there was absolutely no doubt that JURIST was going to support this activity. In this case, the Chief Justice didn't even have to use her influence and that voice that sometimes we have heard. We actually didn't even allow her to finish her sentence. We just wanted to know how we could help, because it was something that gave us this opportunity to really touch the lives of people directly. And if we get another opportunity like this, I expect you'll get a similar level of support. Right? Thank you all.
Based on the last few words of Mr. Follen, can we put our hands again together for him? Thank you very much. Thank you very much to everyone thus far for being here. We will now move to the little handing over ceremony which I spoke about a short while ago, where someone from the project will be presenting a recovery plan to the Honorable Chief Justice. This will be done up front here, so I would like to invite the Honorable Chief Justice to come forward to receive the plan on behalf of the Eastern Caribbean Supreme Court.
Thanks, if I may, Master of Ceremonies. I would really like to thank the JURIST Project for this recovery plan. After the hurricanes of Irma and Maria, I remembered immediately getting in contact with the court administrator, Mr. Gerard, and saying, we have to do something. Do we have a recovery plan? Do we know where to start? And immediately we began a search of trying to find what other judiciaries had done. We reached out to Trinidad and Tobago, and they had started a plan. And we said, let's get what they have so far, let us review it. Because it seemed to me such an important aspect of knowing and having some guide as to what you do, what you put in place, to be able to get back up and running after a disaster. Not necessarily because we know disasters are going to be with us. But as I said, it's not really the falling down. It's about how you get up. So I'm very, very grateful for this. Thank you very much. We are certainly going to make use of it.
It brings me to the final item on the agenda here this morning, and that is to invite the Deputy Registrar of the Eastern Caribbean Supreme Court, Dominica Circuit, to come forward to deliver the vote of thanks. But let's put our hands together for Miss Sebastian.
Good morning. My lady, with your leave, please permit me to adopt the protocol which has already been established. It is indeed a pleasure and a privilege to deliver a few words of gratitude here today at this handing over ceremony. On behalf of the Registrar of the Commonwealth of Dominica, High Court Registry, Mr. Ozzy Walsh, myself, the staff of the High Court Registry, and by extension, the people of Dominica, I wish to extend sincere thanks to the JURIST Project for the support extended to our courts by way of the replacement and upgrade of necessary audio and video recording equipment which were destroyed during the passage of Hurricane Maria in September 2017. Present with us from the JURIST project are Mr. John Furlong, the Regional Coordinator, Mrs. Gloria Richards Johnson, the Project Director, and Ms. Alison Ali, Communications Specialist. Thank you for your presence with us today and for all of your efforts in making today possible. Hurricane Maria completely damaged our courtrooms, and we pretty much had to start from scratch in rebuilding and refurbishing our courtrooms. With so much to do to rebuild, the contribution made by you to us must be applauded. The road to recovery and reopening of our courts was very challenging, but your support and donation significantly helped us on our journey to recovery, and we are very grateful. I think it is safe to say that the equipment donated greatly enhances the physical space of the courtroom, as well as the quality of service that we can now deliver to court users. The Honorable Chief Justice, Dame Janice Pereira, and other court officials from the Eastern Caribbean Supreme Court, we thank you for stepping in and seeking the assistance from the JURIST project on our behalf. We are grateful for your support. I wish to thank persons who worked very diligently and for very long hours, on occasions past midnight, to have the equipment installed in a very quick time. Up to last night, we had the network administrator, Mr. Augustus Masler, from the Eastern Caribbean Supreme Court headquarters here up to about after 9, along with our High Court bailiffs and private contractor, Mr. Lyndon Lestrade, working very hard to make sure that everything was in order for today. So I wish to thank Mr. Augustus Masler, Mr. Mark Ernest, the IT manager at the Eastern Caribbean Supreme Court, and Mr. Gregory Gerard, court administrator, for their assistance in having the equipment installed in a timely manner. I wish to also thank Mr. Cedric Labat from the Electrical Division for all his hard work in making sure that all the electricals were installed here. I wish to thank our High Court bailiffs, Mr. Wayne Winston and Kieran Frampton, for all of your hard work, along with the Eastern Caribbean Supreme Court staff. I wish to thank Mr. Lyndon Lestrade, private contractor, who assisted in purchasing and setting up the equipment. I also wish to recognize other High Court Registry staff for their contributions in making this ceremony possible. Senior Executive Officer, Ms. Hethlyn Baptiste, Court Administrator, Mr. Leroy Peters, Registrar Secretary, Ms. Glenn Prosper, Court of Appeal Clerk, and Judge's Secretary, Ms. Marissa Mears. On behalf of the JURIST project team, I wish to thank the police officers here today for your presence and service. Thank you to the videographers, caterers, media, all invited guests, and everyone present for your support and attending this handing over ceremony of equipment to our court. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Sebastian. Honorable Chief Justice, with your leave, I would like to recognize the presence of the Honourable Minister who has just arrived. So, Honourable Minister, can you stand, please, for us to recognize you? Thanks very much to the Honourable Minister for being here. Honourable Minister is here. He actually just left Cabinet to join us. We're happy that you're here. A lot of thanks and commendation was expressed early on by the speakers for the assistance which the government of Dominica had given to the court, has given to the court thus far, and we would like you to convey to the head of the executive branch our sincere thanks for all the assistance given thus far. There's more to come. We would like to have the Barracoon building organized as soon as possible, Mr. Minister, so that we can have the civil court moved in there as soon as possible. We're happy you're here. I want to, in closing, thank everyone for being here. Without your presence, this ceremony would not have been a success. We want to thank all of you for being here. I would not like to take the wind from the sail of the vote of thanksgiver, but we really want to sincerely thank you. Thanks to the JURIST project persons for being here, for the assistance. Thanks to the Justices of Appeal for being here, part of the ceremony. Thanks to the Honorable Chief Justice for being here. And we really want to say thank God for everything and how things went here this morning, and I just want to inform everyone before we close that as a token of our appreciation, we have some refreshments to give. You can proceed thereafter to the jury room and have a little snack and a little drink thereafter. Thanks to everyone for being here. I would like to bring a close to this morning's proceedings. We're going to resume court in a short while. The Eastern Caribbean Supreme Court in its appellate jurisdiction continues to sit here this morning. Thanks again to everyone, and do have a lovely day. Thank you.